Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
I say we just go ahead and jump right into it. Speaking of free agency, since we did mention that it did die down, I think it's best that we start off with who were the biggest winners in free agency.
I want to say the Phoenix Suns. But I've been bouncing between these two. It's either going to be for me the Los Angeles Lakers, or it's going to be the Phoenix Suns. I do want to give the edge to the Lakers just because of the deal that they got. Austin Reeves on. I mean, like that's an absolute steal. Coming into this, I was assuming the Lakers were going to have to pay him $25 million a year, possibly 30, possibly whatever Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero, Maxey, whatever those guys got. But they got this guy on an absolute steal of a deal, and we saw how much of a quality player he was in this postseason. They ended up picking up a guy like Taurean Prince as well, which is he's a strong 3-and-D level player. They got Jackson Hayes, who's going to be someone that's going to back up the center position. He's not going to be a player that I have high hopes for, but they're looking to fill out certain areas in their roster, and so I do think the Lakers are one of the winners in this free agency, and the other one would be the Phoenix Suns and getting Bradley Beal. I mean, if you get rid of Chris Paul and Landry Shamet, you end up with Bradley Beal. That's an absolute win in my opinion. So it would have to be the Los Angeles Lakers and the Phoenix Suns.
100% my Lakers, man. 100% my Lakers. It's just off how we got Austin Reeves back on that type of deal. It works out perfectly fine for us. And you got to shout out Rob Pelinka. He came out the start of free agency. He said, hey, whatever you guys throw out Austin Reeves, we're going to match it. So no team really, made an offer sheet for him. They didn't.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Yeah. Like, I don't think even a team had a chance just because, they thought, the Lakers are just going to, match it. Why should we even, because there's no way. What is he getting paid? $15 million a year?
I think so. The first year is 12, and the next three are going to be 15 or 14 each.
Which is makes no sense. The Lakers basically just told everybody, hey, we're going to match these guys' offers. There's just don't even bother. Which, I mean, I guess
Pelinka said it straight up. He was like, whatever you throw at him, 100 mil, 90 mil, it doesn't matter. We're going to match it. So teams are like, you know what? He's going to be a Laker. We're going to leave it alone. And we got him on a great team-friendly deal. I think it was 4 years, 50 mil. It's fantastic. We kept Rui. We signed him as well. We got D'Lo back. I'm not a big D'Lo fan, but it is what it is. He knows the system. If he can, play up to par, play a little more consistent, it's going to be good. Jackson Hayes as a backup center, not too fond of him. I don't see much of him, but it's another big body that we can use down the stretch, or when AD gets tired, just throw him in. Hopefully he does something defensively, grab some rebounds. We didn't have that last year. We had Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba wasn't playing. And then, you add Cam Reddish and Taurean Prince and Gabe Vincent. So,
I forgot about Gabe Vincent.
Yeah, Gabe Vincent, after what he did for Miami last year in the playoffs, phenomenal backup player for us, So I feel like, our wing rotation, it kind of got bigger. I feel like we're going to be more physical next year. Our depth, we got some wing size. We got Vanderbilt back. We got Prince. We got LeBron. We got Reddish. So we got some wing size up front. And I'm here. Christian Wood might come to LA in these next couple of weeks. So, add him to the depth. Offensively, he's a fantastic player, a guy that has played with AD. He talked about AD a lot, saying that AD helped him in his game. And I feel like defensively, with Darvin Ham, he can fix up and be a great addition to our team. So I'm giving my Lakers, A+. I feel like we did fantastic this offseason.
Yeah, no doubt. The Lakers were one of the few teams that were extremely active to start off the NBA free agency. But I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to call them my winners. I think for me, when I evaluate teams that have made moves in free agency, I try to look at it from a team perspective, where I want to see which team got better. It's extremely better in comparison to what they were last year. The Lakers pretty much rounded out their roster by bringing back the same guys, and they kind of had to make a decision in whether or not they wanted to, acquire another superstar with all that added cap space that they had going into free agency, or just re-sign a lot of these guys and run it back and have a training camp with this whole group. And so that's what they did. They re-signed a bunch of their guys on a lot of team-friendly deals, and a lot of these guys won't be around for the next about 2, 3, 4 years. So besides maybe Austin Reeves and a couple other players, but For me, when I look at the winners, I think for me, number one, my winner from the 2023 NBA free agency would be number one, the Cleveland Cavaliers. As we saw the Cleveland Cavaliers in the postseason, those guys struggled to shoot the ball, and they made two key signings that I believe will help them in the long run. One being Max Strus and two being George Niang. Do I like the contract they gave Max Strus? I'm not a big fan. Max Strus getting a contract 4 years, $62 million when pretty much all he can do is shoot the three ball. I think it's a big overpay, but he can help him in that aspect of the game where when he needs to stretch the floor alongside guys like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And then George Niang, I think it's a very team friendly deal as well. 3 years, 25 mil. So that deal is all right. But the Max Strus the contract, I'm not really too big of a fan of. 4 years, 62, I think is a little bit of an overpay. They did end up re-signing Karis LeVert for 2 years, 32 mil. So that's one of my winners. And the number two, I do like what the Indiana Pacers did by picking up Bruce Brown in free agency. I think the Indiana Pacers right now, with the way they're constructed, I do believe that they're going to be a playoff team. This is probably the year that they make the playoffs. I mean, they're at the pace that they were going at last year. Before Tyrese Halliburton went out, they're bound to be either a playing team or a low end top 6 seed. And so I think with adding Bruce Brown to this roster and drafting Jarvis Walker in the draft a couple of weeks ago, I think they're starting to round out their roster as well. And so I think everything's starting to mesh well. And I think with the East being so wide open, the Indiana Pacers do have a big opportunity to capitalize on that opportunity, and they have a chance at still in one of these top seeds in the Eastern Conference. And so those for me would be my two winners. But any honorable mentions for biggest winners?
Like my other one would have been the Indiana Pacers. I feel like do we call Bruce Brown an overpay? Kinda, but like at the end of the day, they do have the cap space to sign someone like Bruce Brown. The Indiana Pacers have gotten better. I mean, they drafted Jarvis Walker. Of course, we know that. They picked up Bruce Brown. I think the team this year, they are gonna, as you mentioned, make a playoff push. They are someone that should. I really think the Dallas Mavericks re-signing Kyrie Irving is a win, in my opinion. Getting him back, I know it seemed like for a second after Kyrie was attempting to get out, but it seems like this guy's hell bent on staying in Dallas, and he's working on building a contender with Luka. So I think re-signing Kyrie Irving is a huge move, and they had a great draft as well. So Dallas would be another winner for me.
I was gonna say I think Boston can be another winner. Them kind of switching up the formula, picking up KP, and then
that is one. That's a good one.
I feel like just them picking up KP and getting away from the Marcus Smart thing, getting away from that type of offense, that type of style that they're playing. I feel like KP fits perfectly with them. So I think Boston's another winner as well, and they picked up a couple first round picks the next couple years too. So it's great.
In terms of free agency moves,
I do think it's losing. Are we talking about losers yet, or?
No, not yet. I'm still trying. I'm trying to find an honorable mention winner. I had a few on my list, but
the Sacramento Kings, it wasn't bad either.
Houston. I think
Houston was one of them. I agree. I think Dallas is also another honorable mention winner. But other than that, I think free agency pretty much in terms of winners, there's not really much of them this year. But I think there's a whole lot of losers. So I think we should go ahead and jump into that. Who is the biggest losers coming out of NBA free agency?
Now, I don't know if I would outright say these guys are the biggest losers, but I will say they should be mentioned as losers in free agency. I do think the Denver Nuggets are overrating their roster just a tad bit. They're not. They're hoping guys like Christian Brown and Peyton Watson take a leap, which is putting your trust in second-year players like that is a bit scary, and I don't think they have a necessary replacement for someone like Bruce Brown. I feel like that's going to be somewhere that they sorely miss. I mean, this guy's versatility and ball handling, playmaking ability when he came in was unmatched. He found his ability to cut, and I don't think Christian Brown's going to be able to replicate that. Peyton Watson's a little bit of an unknown. I do think he's a good player, but the Denver Nuggets, after winning a championship, I do think that they should have attempted to find someone to replace Bruce Brown with. But this with Jokic and Jamal Murray and MPJ and Aaron Gordon, and KCP, that's a good enough starting lineup to do a lot with. But still, even then, I feel like they should have attempted to replace Bruce Brown. So they are my loser of the free agency.
For me, I'm gonna say the Warriors. I feel like them trading away. I feel like you could get way more for Jordan Poole, and what they got back is not what you're supposed to get back, and it doesn't fit their style of play, doesn't fit their system at all. And I feel like it was a panic trade. What's Mike Dunleavy 4 days before that trade? Hey, Jordan Poole's here to stay for 4+ years. Blah da da da. He's gonna be here forever. 4 days later, he hits the panic button. He gets Chris Paul back, a 30-year-old Chris Paul that we know hasn't performed in the playoffs recently. We know he's very old and he's on his last legs. And you trade away a young star that you just not a young star, but an upcoming star that you just paid big money to and helped you win the finals the year before for chump change. So and they didn't really get anybody in the free agency either. If I'm looking at it, they only got Dario Saric, and that was about it. What an offseason for them. They didn't address the needs that they needed to. They picked up CP3, and he's a cone on defense. He's a cone on offense. To me, I don't think he's the player that Jordan Poole is. And you could have got more for Jordan Poole. You could have checked the market. You could have said, hey, we can, if Jordan Poole's up right here, we'll throw a first-round pick with him. We could have got another, star or another big star to pair up with Curry and Clay and Draymond. But to me, they're the losers of the draft, free agency.
This one, there's definitely a lot of losers for me. I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 biggest losers. But if I had to pick one, I think for me the biggest loser from free agency are the Sacramento Kings, no doubt in my mind. The Sacramento Kings were a team that they were the 3rd seed this year. They made a huge stride in jumping from being a lottery team all the way to a top 3 team in the Western Conference. They didn't come out of free agency getting any better. I know there's still a little bit of time left to make some sort of move, but there's not much moves that are left to be made this late in free agency. They didn't capitalize on anything. They re-signed Harrison Barnes, they re-signed Trey Lyles, and that was about it. They restructured. I think they extended Sabonis, and he was like a very team-friendly deal. But outside of that, the Sacramento Kings pretty much they're going into this upcoming season the same team they did coming out of last season. So it's like, how they didn't get any better, and the West is only getting better and better. So now I'm looking at the Western Conference as a whole, and I'm trying to see where the Sacramento Kings line up against any of these top teams, in the West. So it's just kind of tough for the Kings to kind of keep up with these guys when a lot of your oppositions are making moves. The Los Angeles Lakers are making moves. The Los Angeles Clippers, they might be on the cusp of making a couple of moves. You also have the Phoenix Suns that made a move as well. And so there's a lot of other teams. Those are the 3 top teams off the top of my head. And then you still have the reigning champs of the Denver Nuggets, and then all these Flyer teams that can compete with you. And so, I think the Sacramento Kings really missed out on a big opportunity to take a swing.
They didn't get worse, though.
They didn't get worse, but they didn't get any better, and everybody around them got better. So it's kind of like they're kind of stuck right now in the situation.
And to be fair, in their minds, they're thinking, okay, we had the best starting lineup in basketball.
I want to say everybody around them got better.
They had the best starting lineup in basketball last season. Like in their minds, they're thinking, okay, yeah, we didn't address in totality. Like we could have went for a guy like Dylan Brooks or Draymond Green or Kyle Kuzma. Like we could have got one out and got a shiny new toy. But in their minds, they're thinking, okay, let's just run it back with this lineup that we have. This one that produced one of the best offensive ratings in NBA history. This killer of a scoring lineup, and let's just get better. They are a fairly young team, and in their minds, they're thinking, okay, we're not even close to our peak yet. Let's just run it back with the same roster and see how far we can get. Let's make improvements on the season marginally. So I don't see the Phoenix Suns. I don't see the Sacramento Kings dropping more than like a 5th seed. I don't see that.
I mean, that's still a drop though in comparison to where they were last year. And
I mean, for a young team that was what they got 48 wins this season. I think that's pretty good for a team that won 48 wins, and they go into stacked Western Conference this season, and they finish as a 5th seed. I don't think that's like a backward, like a complete like backwards dive. Like I feel like that's pretty fair for that team and that roster that they have.
I mean, I just think the way I see it, with them taking that huge of a leap, I was expecting them to kind of keep that momentum going. Whether that would be signing a lot more players, a lot more role players, or taking a swing on a superstar or a star in free agency via trade. I just thought the Sacramento Kings were going to be one of those active teams that were looking to continue to rebuild on what they got, and obviously in order to compete with a lot of their folks in the Western Conference. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But
Like I would look at the Bulls. Honestly, I look at the Bulls and the Raptors as bigger losers than Sacramento Kings.
Yeah,
Like I really think
I wanted to say the Raptors.
those are the teams that are on my list.
I see those two teams that, like, at least with the Kings, they're a winning team. Like those two teams are in purgatory. Like they're not like they, especially for a team like the Raptors, they could have got a haul for Siakam. They could have got a haul for OG. The Bulls are just stuck running the same lineup with Vucevic, DeRozan, and Levine, and that's obviously not producing anything. I think those two teams should be seen as worse losers than the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are in a winning situation compared to those two teams. So
the only difference in the comparison from those teams to the Kings is, the two teams play in the Eastern Conference, which is pretty weak, and when the one team plays in a very stacked Western Conference, and so it'd be a different conversation if the conferences were switched. But I do have those two teams being, along with the Kings as biggest losers as well. I think number one, the Toronto Raptors losing Fred VanVleet in free agency to the Houston Rockets, not really, having a sense of direction. Just pretty much just trying to run it back without one of their pieces that kind of helped them, win a chip a couple of years ago. Siakam's price is too high. OG's price is too high. And so I just kind of have no idea what Masai Ujiri is trying to do with the Toronto Raptors. And for my Chicago Bulls, man, Kobe White, I think he earned himself this payday, 3 years, $36 million. So I'm not too mad at that. But, Javon Carter, 3-year, 19, Torrey Craig, 2-year, $5 million deal. And then I believe they gave Vucevic that extension that I'm completely blanking on. But I just feel like those guys are kind of stuck, with all these rumors going around surrounding Zach LaVine and whether or not he's going to leave or stay. Eventually, coming out of next season, he's going to be gone, whether that's at the trade deadline or, coming out of next offseason, going into the next season. I think Zach LaVine is going to be gone off this roster. DeRozan will be gone. These guys just don't have an idea where they're trying to go. So that's another team that's a loser in my eyes. And then for me, another flyer would be the Washington Wizards. I mean, I think with all those moves that they made in free agency, before free agency kicked off, all those trades, moving off of all those guys, Bradley Beal, and trading for Jordan Poole, I don't know if signing Kyle Kuzma to a 4-year, $90 million deal was the move.
I think they won the free agency, in my opinion. I think the Wizards. I give Wizards an A.
They picked up Tyus Jones. They got Poole. They kept Kuzma. That's not too bad of a free agency.
And they got rid of Bradley Beal's contract. I mean, that's like the biggest W you can
what was the return? What was the return they got back for KP?
Was it that it was Tyus Jones?
It was Tyus Jones.
I mean, they got rid of Bradley Beal's contract. That if that's not like a B, at least like that's like.
And don't forget,
they're like in terms of like my rankings, they're definitely one of like the lower teams that have lost in free agency. But I honestly just don't understand why they would re-sign Kyle Kuzma 4 years, $90 million. I think Kyle Kuzma max stays there for at least half of his contract, and maybe even less than that. I don't think
Kuzma's that type of player to be like, I want out. He's not that type of star caliber player to be like, hey, after 2 years, trade me to an elite team. I want to win a championship. I don't think he has that type of pull. I feel like
he's 27,
and that contract's not bad.
I feel like he's going to stay there, vibe out 4 years, get paid, and just average 23 points a game. I feel like he's that type of guy. So I feel like it's not bad for them. Kuzma was going to get.
I mean, the contract's not terrible. I mean,
yeah,
it's not a terrible contract. I was just assuming that the Washington Wizards would, go into this full rebuild, which they still are at the same time, but like without having a guy that's getting paid some sort of crazy contract. It's not crazy, but a large contract. And I think, I thought they were just going to let Kyle Kuzma walk in free agency. Or I thought Kyle Kuzma himself was going to go test the waters and see what he could get, and maybe even land himself on a contending team. Because I know the market was it wasn't extremely hot, scorching hot, but the market was there for Kyle Kuzma, and I think he could have, if he tested the waters, I think he could have probably ended up with maybe not 90 mil, but maybe a little bit less, somewhere around 80, 70 something, 75. But I look at all these other moves aside from, biggest winners and biggest losers. The Houston Rockets, one of the few teams that came up that I think we do have to talk about in free agency. Fred VanVleet, 4 years, 3 years, $128 million. I'm not too sure how I feel about Fred VanVleet getting $40 million, but I think the Houston Rockets are kind of building themselves some sort of foundation to kind of be a playing team going into next year. And they added, while adding Fred VanVleet, they added guys like Dylan Brooks, 4 years, $86 million. Jack Londale, 4 years, 32. They signed Jeff Green from the Denver Nuggets, 2 years, 16 mil. And so these guys made a lot of moves, man. I think these guys are, obviously one of the sneaky, underrated winners coming out of free agency. But, I'm just kind of curious as to what is, Ime cooking with a lot of these guards. It's going to be interesting to see how this whole experiment pans out. Looking at the Clippers, Russell Westbrook, 2 years, $7
They got him
million.
on an unreal deal. Let's be honest.
That's crazy.
That's a great deal.
And that's him choosing that.
I think he picked that too. Team friendly option for him, but
there's no way if Westbrook tests the market, he's getting some sort of crazy contract. Maybe a little bit more than $7 million.
He's getting a lot more than that. I'll tell you that.
But
I mean, Reggie Jackson's getting
what is he getting if he tests the market?
He's getting minimum at $50 million a year. Minimum.
Yeah, 15 is all right. 15 is all right for us.
I really think he could push that to $20 million a year.
On what team though?
I don't know.
If a team was interested in offering Westbrook, they'd give him $20 million a year. And that's a pretty solid deal for a guy like Westbrook, I think, at this point.
I think he would definitely taken 20 million, but I think he's found himself a nice fit on this Clippers team, and so I think it makes sense for him to return. Looking at other moves as well, the one move that's kind of like a head scratcher for me, and also another team that I actually do have to mention being one of the biggest losers as well, is the Portland Trailblazers. Aside from the whole Dame saga and everything that's going on with him, these guys came out in free agency and re-signed Jeremy Grant to a 5-year, $160 million extension. Not only did they do that, they ended up matching Matisse Thybulle's offer sheet from the Dallas Mavericks, which was for 3 years, $33 million. And so I honestly have no idea what this franchise is doing. I think this is one of the franchises right now that are in shambles.
Yeah, like everybody knows the elephants in the room. They know the Portland Trailblazers can't run a 2-timeline gimmick. It's Dame or it's these young guards. It's a rebuild or attempting to contend, not even contending, just attempting to contend. And it seems like Jeremy Grant was in their plans of attempting to contend until they realized Damian Lillard wants out. And I just don't understand why they would need to pay Jeremy Grant. I do think he's a solid player, but he's not worth that level of money, especially for a team that isn't going to be contending. So this team's just like, I get that now they're just going to hold out for the best offer for Dame, but like, why would you do that? And then like, you're still stuck with this Jeremy Grant contract. Like, what are you attempting to do? Like, why even offer it to him in the first place? So, I feel like this team is kind of stuck until they get rid of Dame. And, after they get rid of Dame, then it's just like, okay, then the rest of these guys are on rookie contracts. We can just eat up this Jeremy Grant contract. It's fine. But they also match Matisse Thybulle. So, I mean, I don't understand what they're attempting to do. But if they do end up trading away Dame, I do like the idea of just them. At least it'll lessen the pain of having to deal with Jeremy Grant's contract. So
that's fair, but I guess they weren't necessarily anticipating Damian Lillard to be requesting a trade this offseason, but I at the same time they did have to be prepared for something like that to happen with all the subliminals Dame was sending their way. But aside from that, I think that's just pretty much a wrap on NBA free agency. A lot of teams made some solid moves. One last move before we move on. Cameron Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets, 4 years, $94 million. I think that's pretty solid for a guy like him. I think the Brooklyn Nets understand that, he's going to be one of their pieces for the future alongside Mikal Bridges. And so it only makes sense to re-sign him to that deal. And he also made a couple other moves, taking Lonnie Walker from the Lakers, Darius Baisley. And that's pretty much it. Dennis Smith Jr. signed with them recently, I guess. But anyways, like I was saying, that's pretty much a wrap on NBA free agency.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.